If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, this is Angela Grout, and welcome back to Why Write. I'm here today with a guest that we've had on in the past, so we're doing a little part 2 today because I know how much you enjoyed talking to Wendy Bird, and I did too, and there was so much more to talk about that we have the part 2 of the show. So I want to welcome Wendy back to the show. She is an author. She has written a children's book. She has written a journal that everybody can use to benefit their own life. She is the owner of Pearls with a Purpose, which is a jewelry company that gives all of their profits to survivors of sex trafficking and helping all of them. And she can tell us a little bit more about that. And she did tell us that in another episode. But she's also a keynote speaker. So today we have her on to talk a little bit about how she became a keynote speaker, because she gives these incredible, inspiring speeches at events all over the world. She's given them in 28 countries, and I believe it's 48 states. Am I right?
40. Yeah, 48.
So there's been a lot of people that have, taken in what she has said and has really made a difference in her life because, she, on her website, which you'll have to check out at coachwendybird.com, she talks about giving people energy and it's just, I want to know more, and I know you too. So I just want to welcome Wendy Bird onto the show.
Oh, thanks, Angela. You're so great. It's good to be back, and I just relish with the vibe we give off to each other. It's so fun.
Yeah, no, we have some really great energy here, and I mean, you do so many inspiring things, and it really inspires me. Because I'm at we all go through these crossroads in life where, it's time to kind of take a different, path for a little while and journey down that. And I'm, gone from being a dance teacher for 12 years to owning a floral business for 30 years, to being a writer for almost 20 years now, but now doing more with my writing, obviously with, Why Write. So, talking to authors like you and entrepreneurs, who want to change the world and make it a better place with their own energy. That's you.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's anybody who finally embarks, like you said, on those different paths. They don't veer away from change. They don't shy away from the uncomfortable, like that famous quote, life begins where your comfort zone ends. And that's exactly when your life will begin. We talked on the last episode a little bit about our surgeries. I'd mentioned getting hit by a car. I'm actually just in a post recovery. So I know the rule is it always comes in threes, and my threes are like 5 years apart with individuals who chose to run red lights. And so I was never at fault with any of the car accidents. But because of that, I've had 9 years up until this accident last month, 3 weeks ago. But 9 years of full-time PT, which is rehabbing, as you know, your body and trying to get it to a place of function.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say, because probably one of my number one feedback things when people hear me talk is, 53 surgeries, like you're half titanium, like how? And so I want to throw out just a quick little blurb on the how, because we're talking about that mind state and the journal, the Planning with Purpose planner. And it wasn't always like, I'm just going to bounce back from
There's
this.
the planner.
There you go. You got it. That's
Planning
awesome.
with a purpose. I love it.
Yeah. And like here's
morning and evening
a
rituals.
partial fill for me. But on the second accident, I actually got discouraged. I had applied for a race. It's called Lotaja, and it goes 206 miles in one day from Logan, Utah to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so you crest through the canyon and you come up, and there's the Tetons. And I mean, it just ends just majestically with the Grand Tetons there. And I had ridden in the race and was super excited because it's a lottery.
You're cycling.
This is road biking.
Yes.
Road biking. And so I was stoked. And then this car incident happened. And a lot of times none of us, not you, not me, nobody has the crystal ball to be able to predict your life is going to be flipped. 3 weeks ago, we didn't have a crystal ball at that intersection to say, hey, this lady's going to be running a red light and completely upending your entire life. And so that's where I was in 2015. And I got discouraged. I think we all can downward spiral or we can upward spiral. And because I had at that point been hit by a car, a few years earlier, and I was already done rehabbing through like 36 surgeries, I was super discouraged to learn that I was going to have another hip surgery. I wasn't going to be able to do the race. And I got really dark. And I want to really, I guess, admonish and enunciate, like, that's okay. It's okay to grieve, these losses that we're going to go through. And a lot of times it's when we don't grieve, when we don't take that time to acknowledge, I was looking forward to this and now I don't get to do it, because that's a form of grief. Yeah. And one of my cycling friends was like, I have the solution for you, Wendy. I was like, yes, give me the solution. Like, how can I pull out of this slump? And he says, go buy a new bike. And if you road bike, they're, anywhere from $3,000 to $20,000, right? You can spend a lot of money on a road bike. It's like buying a car. I was like, I don't think I need a new bike right now. Thanks. And he's like, no, I want you to go buy a new bike and you're going to put it at the foot of your bed. And every day after surgery, the first thing you see when you get up, you're going to tell yourself, I'm riding my bike in 12 weeks, 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 8 days.
It's like the little black dress hanging in my closet. I'm going to
there you go.
And bikini.
Yeah. And so 12 weeks later, I had probably one of the biggest breakthroughs for self with a capital S, right? I had one of the biggest breakthroughs because I had taken my life that had been like this, right? Like, I have all these things going on. I really want to do this, but I can't do this. I say I'm a cyclist, but I haven't been able to ride for 12 weeks. And that 12 weeks magically shifted into this beautiful internal alignment within myself. And so all of a sudden, here I was out of alignment and kind of skewered because I wasn't doing what I used to do. But in here, I had completely lined everything up because I got out on October 21st with a couple inches of snow and I rode my bike. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the magic of putting a couple miles on my bike. It was the magic of what I said became what I did. Oh, and what I did.
The power of words is amazing.
Yeah, it was, I got in alignment and I manifested integrity for myself, and myself flipped and said, we can believe in her. She does what she says she's going to do. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get a lot of ourselves tripped up. A lot of our habits, a lot of our incongruencies occur when we say, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. We set the alarm, but then we're up late, not talking to a husband or talking to a kid, or just we can't sleep well. So the alarm goes off. And what's the first thing we do? Oh, snooze. Or, oh, I'll go tomorrow. I don't have to go to the gym today. Okay, I'll go at noon. I'll go in a few hours. And our psyche gets out of alignment. And our congruency says, I can't believe in her or him. I can't believe what they say. I can't believe what they're going to tell me because they hit snooze, or they didn't show up, or they were 20 minutes late, or they didn't make the bed, or they didn't finish the book writing, or they didn't do the challenge. Whatever it is, it didn't happen. Yeah. So therefore, I don't believe this anymore. And we come out of congruency. And when I caught on to the magic of being in alignment with S, self, capital S, self, my whole world changed. Like it did. It doesn't matter if I get hit by a car. It doesn't matter if I have a surgery. It doesn't matter because I'm in alignment with who I know I am, and what I say I'm going to do, I know will happen. Does that make sense?
I totally get it. I mean, when I owned a flower shop for like 3 decades. And when I went to work every day, I felt totally alignment. Like it was, it ran smoothly. I loved what I did. It was, almost in a sense being on autopilot, like, cause everything just kind of flows, and it was very nice and I loved it. And then I had an auto accident, which wrecked my hand. Oh, and I was trying to work with my hand, and I was in cast after cast trying to fix it. And if I was able to take the 6 weeks off like the doctor wanted, I probably would have healed faster, but it was the Christmas season. I own a flower shop. I mean, I have work to do. I don't have time to be injured. And I didn't take the time to heal because my boss, who is me, wouldn't give me the time off. He was like, I'll write you a note. I'm like, you can write a note, but the doctor's not taking it. I mean, my boss. And it was like, through that, then I found out I needed to have surgery, but to have the surgery is going to be 3 to 4 month recovery. So I honestly will say for like probably a good 2 years before the pandemic, there were times where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. My hand hurts so much. I would have ice packs wrapped around him trying to do things. And as much as I loved what I was doing, the alignment was falling apart a little bit. And I was so frustrated because it was balancing my health, but balancing, it was taking me out of that. And that's what happens when you have these accidents. It's like all of a sudden your world gets kind of flipped and you want to, for me, I want to stay on that autopilot. Like I'm going to ignore the pain and keep going. And then the pandemic came and I lost my staff and I was trying to do it all myself. And
oh, wow.
It wasn't doable. My lease was up. There were so many factors that I, had to make the decision to shut the business down. And, 2 months later, I fixed my hand, but then all these ailments went. And, right now I'm recovering from knee replacements. So like you, I'm part titanium. I've had over, 29 surgeries. Not as many as you, but you're like, okay, every time I have a surgery, it's like, okay, I need to fix myself. I'm taking care of myself, but how do I get myself back in alignment, And,
right.
Trying to recover can be very dark. You're alone. It can be depressing, and having that inner voice that can cheer you on, or the inner voice that you have to, shut up that critic, to try to look forward to the future. And for me, I was like, well, what am I going to do? All I can do right now is write. And, I wanted to do the things I loved. And I came up with the idea for this show. And it's like, yeah, I can do this while I'm sitting here, with ice on my knee and, not on camera with that. And it's part of like being resilient and part of, trying to do what you say, like you're saying, and I think finding that mindset can be difficult. And, like people say, how do you stay optimistic? After all these surgeries, Wendy, how do you do it? And it's like, we have our dark moments. I mean, when I go to bed, I sleep well, I'm tired. I feel what I'm feeling, but I know I'm going to move forward, and tomorrow is a new day. And I'm always grateful for a new day because I know what a gift it is.
Right. That mortality motivation.
And, you're giving, as I mentioned earlier, you've given keynote speeches for 28 countries. And for someone who's interested in doing something like that, who is a public speaker, who has these experiences to share, can you share with us a little bit? Like, I know you have 7 or 8 topics from happiness factor, you have the not the little black dress, you have these
not your LBD
titles. Yeah, LBD, not your little black dress, but like that's the title of one of the keynotes that you would give. So when someone contacts you, they can look at your website and say, this would fit my audience, and reach out to you and say, would you come to whatever the event is and give this keynote speech on this topic, seeing you're already an expert on teaching people professional and personal growth. Like, how do you walk us through the steps of not only developing a keynote speech, but even getting the opportunity to present a keynote speech?
So getting the opportunity to present typically comes in the most bizarre, random shapes. And a lot of it has to do with your ability to deliver. It only takes usually, like, I would say 1 or 2 talks that you give either voluntarily or to a Rotary Club luncheon or a networking group or a board meeting. I've given talks to conference rooms of 16 people, and those have been just as moving and empowering as the talks to the 5,000 or the 10,000 in a stadium. It's a range based off of, if you have the ability to move, touch, and inspire somebody in the audience, they will have a need for what you have to say. And so I think my first speech would have been back in like 2004 or 5, and it was just at a networking event. And they said, could you come up on the stage and you're going to have 8 minutes, and would you just tell us a little bit about why you started this nonprofit? And that was like raw. That was not a PowerPoint. That was not, fancy. There was maybe 80 people there. And I just stood up and I just spoke from my heart.
Yeah.
And if you're an individual that can speak from your heart, and do it, without guile, without what am I going to get from this, but more like, how can I serve who I'm standing in front of? And that's kind of my mentality, is not, what can I get from this or what do I need, but it's what do they need?
Yeah. I mean, I've given a lot of talks about flower designs over the years, demonstrating
awesome.
them and things like that, it's when you're comfortable with the subject, like you said, you don't need the PowerPoint displays and, things like that, because you're just talking from the heart and you're sharing, the authentic
you're
knowledge
sharing a part of you
and all that, which is, wonderful. And everybody, needs to do that before, they die. You have to share what's inside. You have to.
And so I'm now that things have refined a lot more since that, beginning stages, I found that it's more of, if it's a conference or an event and I'm like just the luncheon keynote or breakfast keynote, or, just for one small portion of a 2-day event or a 3-day event, I attend the whole 3 days, because I want to have my finger on that pulse of the audience.
Yeah.
Whether it's people that are out wandering or people attending breakout sessions, I just act like one of the attendees and I just take part and I get to know people and I ask. I am so curious. Curiosity is your number one friend, right? Is you ask questions of those around you. Number one, you can bring what you learn up in your talk. I can tell you, I think probably 9 out of 10 of my talks, I change the night before I deliver it. And so I'll have the meat, right? And the feeling for what I want, but then somehow throughout that morning or day, if it's an afternoon talk or if it's a second day talk, I will have learned some key takeaway from those there, and I'll bring it up in my talk and they're just like, how did she know that? Because it resonates so much with their group or their dynamic, or with a person that's in the audience that they, have great respect for, maybe an old president or, somebody who just, was actively engaged in their group. And so being curious, being consistent with your messaging. A lot of people feel like they need to deliver their message, but it's still their mess. And as they're starting to share and talk about it, like I could have said, oh my gosh, I got hit by a car and it was awful and I just hurt and I still have to do this. And I had to go, oh, and the court case, you should have seen the court case, right? I could have segued, but the reality is no, I got hit by a car. Yes. But here's my key takeaway. I bought a bike and I put it at the foot of my bed. And that's how I grew. Yeah. Because if we focus on the vitriol and the energy and allow ourselves to be victimized by our circumstances, we're still in our mess and we really can't deliver an effective message for other people to grow through.
It's so similar to, like, for me as a writer, it's similar to that rough draft that you write, or when you're talking about the idea of writing something, like, I have an experience that happened to me and I'll share it with someone, but it sounds like just a mumbo jumbo mess when I'm sharing it right away, but I know there's a story there. And then when I put it on paper, it still can look a little messy. And then all of a sudden it starts to take the shape, because then I have the focus of, yes, this is a story and this is the message I want to bring. And I want it to be positive, like looking at that bike. But right away you're like, okay, this is, why did this happen? You have to find out the why behind it.
You do. Yeah.
Or even make up the why.
Right. And that's the third thing is the impact. So I learned probably during COVID, so only recently, about 3 years ago, I had somebody, a mentor, who had listened to one of my keynotes, and he's like, Wendy, you got the energy, you have this great, amazing message, you get standing ovations at every speech, like you make people laugh, you make people cry, like you have all these things, but you're missing one thing. And I was like, what is it? And in that moment, you have a choice. You can get defensive and say, you're saying I'm not good enough, right? Or you can say, what more can I learn? Because I do want to continue to get better. And I am in that camp of, I know there's no perfection going on here. I know I need to continuously work at this. And that takeaway that he gave me really pivoted my keynotes, especially where we were having to deliver through Zoom and we were slowly getting ramped back into keynote messaging. And it was, you need to somehow incorporate what your audience can, like, in their futures, in their lives, in their day-to-days, what can they build upon from your talk that will help them to be who they're striving to be? Because not everybody's going to go create a nonprofit. Not everybody's going to go and recover from 54 surgeries. Not everybody's going to go, and experience what you've experienced. So what is going to be like that key takeaway? And you need to deliver that with a very powerful quote that they all of a sudden go, oh, I got to write that down, And man, I went back into every single one of my keynotes and went through them and found what that key breaking thing was. And then I scoured through the internet finding quotes that resonated. And then it was like, okay, this is that person. So the greater understanding they have of the impact they will have through service, the greater ability they then have to contribute. Oh, on this one. Okay, so as you understand the joy derived from an individual who does this, you will then da da da. And it became that ebb and flow of, once this happens, then this occurs. The cause and effect of your.
And on the previous episode, so please watch that, everyone. We did talk about the fact that she does own Pearls with a Purpose, which is
the nonprofit. Yeah,
this nonprofit. And what one of her missions is like to teach people. I mean, if I'm going to say this, but like to teach people that you can make a difference no matter how small or large your world is. So she may be helping out the nonprofit that is helping out in other countries, but we can help out right here in our neighborhood. And I think that, when we talked last show, that was a big thing that I walked away with was, with your nonprofit, you're helping others. And you're right. People can listen to your talk and go, oh, well, I'm not going to create a nonprofit to do that. People have different callings, but yet they might hear what you're saying and say, well, you know what? I have some clothes and jackets I'm not using. Maybe I should donate them down the street. And it's those the little nuggets that you can, help plant into someone, little ideas, and show them how they become their own nonprofit,
right, for themselves.
Yeah,
like how are you this advocate for yourself and your dreams and your, like, you had to close your flower shop during COVID and all that. Did you just go home and become this wallflower and say, life's over, I did what I could do?
I'm still in the grieving process,
right? But you did the pivot.
But I'm working on I'm working with the pivots with titanium knees.
yeah. And that's what you want to be able to pull out of your audience. When you're delivering a good keynote, you're able to allow others to envision their life at a different level and a different place than where they currently are.
How long are your keynote talks, like time-wise?
Oh, if it's like a breakout session, it's usually that 50-minute thing. If it's the keynote breakfast or lunch or dinner, it's a close to an hour. It's close to that hour mark. It all depends on the contract. Sometimes they say we've only got 30 minutes. Sometimes they say we've only got 8 minutes. Sometimes they say you have 56 minutes. It's really based on the client.
And do you have a preferred way of I'm gonna use the word performing your keynote, because there is a performance in it. Because I know some people like to stand behind the podium and maybe have their notes in front of them. Other people will pace back and forth and get automated on the stage. I mean, obviously when we're on Zoom, we're kind of sitting in one space. And I know even from doing the show, like my production technical editor here will say, don't move your arms so much because the camera can fade out. And I'm always like, okay, let me sit still.
But your natural inclination.
Yeah. So do you have a preferred way? Because people can learn from you, but at the same time, everyone's going to find their own key of what works for them.
It is, yeah. And I have had to teach myself how to be comfortable in the most uncomfortable speaking
Situation.
possibility.
Yeah.
And that is the walking across the stage, no notes, just boom.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the place where I kind of became reliant on the PowerPoint and being able to see what was coming next, because that would steer it. So I don't have an issue with what do I say. I've got that down to like the bullets, you know, and probably my greatest fear came to pass like 2017 in San Diego. And I went to do it and they said, could you just do this without your PowerPoint? We're having a glitch with our tech stuff and we don't have your PowerPoint. And I had been reliant on them. So I didn't have my laptop, didn't have my backup. And I was like, are you kidding? And they were like, nope. And I had to do it. And stepping into that is you're already nervous. You never ever get to a place of comfort.
Well, because you know what you want to say, but when you get, there, sometimes
yeah,
you forget.
but I had become dependent on, I know what this next picture is, and therefore I'll go into this. And it was, you're never comfortable, because it's not that I have anxiety. It's just, I'm a normal human being. And so my nerves, before any speech, it doesn't matter if I've given 50 or 100 or 500, any speech I give, it's always that, I'm sweating. Does my hair look okay? Is there food in my teeth? It's just nerves. It's normal nervousness. And so, you already have that. And then you getting mic'd up, and then they're telling you, actually, we don't have the tech. And I was like, holy smokes, this is not going to go well. And that was when I learned, no, it's actually going to go great. I can still
change the script in your head.
Yeah, I can go back here and still do my breathing exercises that I do. And I know these stories inside and out. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to see the pictures for what's coming out. Because usually for me, my reliance is that next picture is my, hint. Yeah, my cue. Exactly. And so that taught me, Wendy, you've got to be at a level where if there's no PowerPoint, if there's no notes, if there's no lights, if there's no electricity, if there's no mic, are you in a place of strength where you could just stand and belt it? And I was like, ooh. And so I practiced a lot. That's a lot of mirror practicing. My bathroom's back there. So I'm motioning to my bathroom. But yeah, it's a lot of standing in front of the mirror. And it's a lot of, so my mantra is yo me encargo. I speak Spanish. And that is, you've got this, right? And so I'm like, yo me encargo, yo me encargo, yo me encargo. And then I go through the squared breathing methods and things like that. I know one time I was about to give a speech and I had been out for surgery for 12 weeks. And my husband was just like, he's like, okay, your thing's in like 45 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'll be back. And I left and I could not find a quiet place to go. There was like, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 people there. And so I ended up going behind this little curtain thing and I'm standing facing the concrete wall and I'm doing my little get to your happy place, do your squared breathing, be in cargo, Namah Shivaya, and I'm pulling all my stuff in and I'm getting that to a place because that calms my nervousness down so that the rapid heart rate isn't happening. And all of a sudden I hear this, and I'm just like, someone's watching me, and everything escalated back up. And I turned around, and it was my husband. He's like, you need to get back there. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was nervous all over again.
No, I mean, I'll share, like, even as a wedding florist, I mean, so many times as a wedding florist, when I show up at a venue, number one, I have a time restriction. So, I mean, I'm sweating going, okay, I got to decorate, get 50 centerpieces out and decorate the arch and the cake and be out of here at this specific time. So the time management involved, even like doing the shows, knowing the time, because, it's a 30 minutes, before I be in the car and I give myself like that pep talk and it's like, okay, you got this, you can do this, you know what to do, follow the notes. I mean, cause I, following that order and I'm like, okay. And, for me, I, search for prayer. So I would say my little prayer. And I remember one time I, was just doing an automatic in the car and I had an assistant in the car with me and she was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, Oh, I'm just getting organized so that
I'm
everything
getting
goes
organized.
smoothly. And I'm like, please let me read this properly and follow the directions on my paper that I created and
Mhm.
execute this wedding so that the bride will be happy. Because once
Right.
you walk away, once you get off that stage, you've left your message there, and it's like, okay, did I communicate everything I needed to communicate?
Right.
And so it's interesting, I'm going to recap that. Like you do anything from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on, what kind of speech it is, which,
Mhm.
for people
And
looking
the audience.
to do these things, it is a matter of, well, what is your audience and how long do you have to talk? And that helps you to do the outline for, your speech. And
Mhm.
then, there's the business end of it, of course, like you were saying, the I'm going to call them the kismet moments when you get the opportunities to do it. When someone reaches out and says, hey, finds out about you, and then you develop a business around it, sort of like you have, where people
Right.
can reach out on your website, find you, and,
Mhm. Well, typically though, they hear you speak, because whenever you're speaking, there is guaranteed between one to a couple dozen people there who they're in charge of finding speakers for an event or something they volunteer for or something they're just involved with. And so they come find you. And it's like, I just heard you speak. Probably since the very beginning that I'm referral based. I
yeah,
mean, it's rare that I'm out hunting for the speeches. It's more
yeah,
of, oh my gosh, so I just got your name from so and so. She heard you speak 3 years ago, or she heard you speak 2 years ago, or she heard you speak last week at this conference. Are you available? And and then I'm like, well, look at the calendar and see.
yeah,
I know you were asking me a little bit about pricing.
yeah.
Pricing's
That's
always
my
tough.
question. I was like, how do you get paid to do these things, and who sets the price?
Um, that's a learning curve I think every individual needs to go through, because if you have your pricing set up, which I don't, you will alienate a lot. And so I'll do a lot of volunteer stuff for organizations that I have a passion for. Rotary Club is one of them. I've been a Rotarian for decades, and I love what Rotary stands for, and I love their audience because they're socially minded individuals. And so it's an audience that I gravitate to easily. They gravitate to my cause very easily. And so in those budgets, it's kind of like, well, we can pay for your housing, we can pay for your transportation, we can pay for this. And my stipend is always, make a donation to my nonprofit.
Yeah.
Or let us set up a table and showcase what the women vend. I mean, we did we did a district conference in Virginia. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and I had a cough. It was in October, and so I'm up there trying to get a talk, and I do a little cough. And I didn't have water with me usually, and make sure you always have water. And this Rotarian guy just comes walking by, and he puts a cough drop up there. Or no, sorry, first one, he walks by, he gives me a thing of water. I'm like, that's so great. Then he circles around, he comes back up, and he gives me cough drops. Then he circles around, he comes back up, and by the third time he was coming up there, it was starting to throw me off my game, because I'm just like, dude, you can't keep coming up here, because then my obligation is, oh, thank you so much, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And then I lose my train of thought. And so I'm just like, dude. Well, then he goes to the back and he's holding up these signs, and he accidentally held up a 3-minute sign when I had 10 minutes left. And I was like, oh my gosh,
You got to wrap it up. Yeah.
minutes to wrap up. And in my flow, I knew I had 10 to 15 minutes, and I was like, how did I lapse over 8 minutes? I was just like,
Yes,
oh
yeah.
shoot, all these distractions have been like messing with me. And so anyway, and so I just I held up my purple dress book, and I was like, you guys, and we had put 5 at each of the tables before the speech. And I said, I'm just going to close with this story of the purple dress, and you all have 5 copies at your table, and when they're gone, they're gone. So grab your copy if you want it. And I saw people grab a couple copies, and then I shared the story and did my closing thing and all that. And one lady stands up, do you have any more of those books? And another lady's crying, and she's like, I need 3 of them for my granddaughter. And so my husband's like running around, and we sold out of the books. And
That's
so
awesome.
you have to be able to improvise.
Yeah, no, totally. And one thing I picked up on right there, which is important for people who do give talks, and of course even for me doing a show, because I have to watch the timer also, is having someone there in the back, or someone, whether you have your phone on a timer or something, just to give you that, like, okay, you have 2-minute warning, or hopefully a 10-minute warning or something, so that you do know how to wrap it up, because you hate to just get played off like the Emmys, like that's or God forbid be on a Zoom where it just shuts down. Oh, sorry. Shuts down, so abruptly. So, there is that thing to take into consideration of also managing your time on the stage and understanding what's happening.
Mm-hmm. So true.
As I'm saying this, let's, before we run out of time on our show today, let's tell our audience how they can reach out to you to get information on, if they're looking to be a keynote speaker and, possibly have you be a coach or something like that for them, or to have you come speak at an event. How can they find you?
CoachWendyBird.com or pearlswithpurpose.org. Cell phone, email, Wendy@pearlswithpurpose.org. It's all,
right.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links down below in the podcast. This is the journal that she has. That is very, very helpful. And the children's book that she wrote, The Purple Dress, hold that up. They're both available, I'm assuming, on your website. And are they available on Amazon?
Purple Dress is on Amazon, yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, Wendy, thank you so much. I mean, you are so fascinating to listen to. You're so encouraging and inspiring. And I can see why you're, giving talks in 28 countries and 48 states, because, your energy is contagious in a good way. And, I definitely appreciate having you on the show. So thanking you for taking the time.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor always.
You're very welcome. And I want to take a time to thank Studio 954 and you, the audience, for tuning into the show, because, without you, there would be no show. We need an audience. So thank you for your interest, not only in your own progress of becoming a writer, but also taking an interest in the writers of the world, like Wendy Bird and myself and the authors that I do have come on the show. Because as we share our stories with you, it will help you become a storyteller too. So at this point, I want to say, pick up your pen. It's that time. Pick up your pen, grab your pencil and paper. And when the show ends, I want you to set your timer for 10 minutes. And today I'm going to give you a prompt so that you can start writing. And what I want you to write is, if you were to give a talk about something that you are an expert in, what would it be? And just write it out. Just say, I want to talk about the 27 surgeries I had and how I endured. So start writing, share your stories, and thank you so much for tuning in to yWrite.